All right, so in the previous video, we talked about how to take your idea from a thought experiment to production as a SaaS product. So if you haven't checked that one out, go check that out first. This one's going to be about how we will keep a code base maintainable and how we keep these AI models on track. So the problem is if you don't give these models an architectural design and an architectural decision-making process, then it's just going to do whatever it thinks is right. And generally, it's going to make things several times, or it's going to just do the wrong thing. And that's not to say that the product won't work, but it will have problems and it'll be very hard to maintain in the future. So basically, to prove this, I've generated this PDF tool. And it's just because I needed a way to edit PDFs for free. Everything I found online cost money, required users to sign up. And it was just a pain in the ass, to be honest. It would be like, oh, it's free, but you'd use it. And then as you go to download, it'd be like, oh, by the way, you need an account. Oh, by the way, you also need to pay $5. So I created this as a free tool. Yes, you can sign up. You do not need to pay anything to download. Anyone can download. You don't even need an account. Sign up will be a feature for later that we will implement to remove ads on the platform. So basically, right now I've got a few features. It's got this page select. I can add a new page, things like that. I need to implement more features, but I've got text. I can add text. So like, oh, okay, I want to put text here. But key feature I needed was to draw a signature. So needed to be able to sign a document, and I wanted to put that, say, at the bottom of every page. So that's all I needed, and then I needed to download the file. Now the problem with this is it works, everything's fine. The big issue is that the code is starting to get to a point where if I want to add any more tools or features to the platform in terms of editing the document, it's getting really hard to do that because everything is not formatted well in terms of the code structure. And I can go into more detail on that. And basically everything that's happening on the edit page is shown in this file. And as you can see, it's 520 lines. So we've got all of this code that should be split into reusable components, or at least logical components that separate each tool by its definition. We don't need all of this in the same file. There's functions that are called, there's things like that are called. So basically what we want to do is we want to come back, we want to clean this file up. This editor shell should be the editor shell itself. It should not contain any of the tools within the shell. So the goal for this video is to show you how I would go about refactoring this, and essentially what will make this more maintainable in the future. And then if we get time, if the video doesn't go too long, then I'll look at implementing a new feature. Basically, as usual, we're gonna start with the Claude code prompt. So I will get something ready and we'll come back. Okay, so we got our prompt and now we're just gonna have Claude generate our plan for this. Okay, so this is a good example where I would not implement this plan. I don't like the direction it's heading, and I feel like it's just going to make more files and code for no reason. So I'm going to actually delete this entire prompt and start over, just because the way it's trying to set up like a context and it's still propping all of this stuff, like it doesn't make sense. Each tool should be separate. It should be its own component, and the canvas should only know about stuff that has been added to the canvas. Okay, so that took a while. I'm not sure why it wouldn't work on the first prompt. It just took a few shots to get it right. But this is where having a fundamental knowledge of React and components comes into play. If you didn't have that, then you could miss this and you'd end up with worse code than when you started. But it ended up being a very short prompt that worked. I ended up running quite a few different attempts and this was the best one. So it's going to try to implement this text toolbar component structure for the other components. Basically, that's the direction it's gone with, and I'm happy with that. It seems like it's going to do the right sort of logic that I want, and then we'll see how it goes anyway. It's going to be just on a working branch, so if it doesn't do a good job, we can always come back and try again. Let's run it and see what it does. Okay, so generally I'm happy with this. It's gone from 500 to like 430-ish. I think we can still clean it up quite a bit more. What I'm probably going to do is also have it take this as well. You put the side tray part, which is this bit, and put that into a component too. Something else I think that we can do is also with the signature tool, I think we can put some of this functionality into the tool itself, because all it is storing it in memory. So I think some of that can go into the tool itself. So once again, I'll just come back, we'll give it another prompt and we'll go from there. All right, so after some back and forth with this, I've got it to a point where I'm pretty happy with it. It's not perfect, and I definitely think there's still some changes I could make, but in general, like, it took a lot. I had to prompt maybe 6 or 7 times for it to finally get it to a point where I would feel comfortable adding more tools. So to go over what's changed is quite simple, actually. We can view it in our Git tree or Git tab up here, and we're in the editor shell. So if we view this, we can see everything that's changed. This is my way of doing like a first review of code changes before I submit a PR and have Gemini do a review for me. Like, a lot of this has been moved into the actual components, which is nice. The toolbar has been put into a single component, which again is nice. If we ever want to change the top toolbar, we just need to change that component. The text is what we based this on. This was what had already been implemented when I first set up the project. Similarly, we've done a signature toolbar that follows the same as the text structure. So this is the part that took the longest, the document structure for editing the PDFs. For some reason, it was trying to handle 2 documents rather than, or it was trying to handle each one separately. So I refactored this into a more logical way, which allows it to just have a single document with both components inside of that document. And then at the bottom, we didn't touch any of this. It's just the signature modal that pops up when you try to submit a new signature, this one. So basically from there, if I'm happy with the code, like, I don't need to look at everything here. I have a fair idea it's doing the right thing. I will look at the hook to make sure that there's just nothing going on with this. Looks fine. Again, like, it's pretty good at this sort of stuff now. This did cause some issues with the observer. It was kind of losing track of where it was on the page when I would click a page here. So that's now handled separately, which is nice. Having big components like this kind of duplicates a little bit of code, but it makes it easier to refactor in the future when I come back and inevitably have to add more features to this project. The document's gone out of here again because we had dual documents. In summary, I'm pretty happy with this. So my next steps from here would be to submit this to GitHub, and then Gemini is going to do a code review. So I will come back once Gemini's done a code review. Okay, so Gemini's come up with its summary. So again, like in the other video, all I do is just go through this and do a quick check over. It's done the summary, it hasn't done the comments, so I guess I'll wait for the comments. Okay, so Gemini's done a good job here. It actually pointed out that this was a significant change in terms of the architecture of the editor. Something I noted was one of the comments, just this one, it talks about like some potential for infinite loops. So I'm actually going to pass this back to Claude Code and just see what it thinks. And again, because we changed something, we will check that it all works. So we will commit that with the latest change. All right, so while I have Claude working on the next feature for this app, I just want to talk about why we go through these refactorings. So logically, if I want to make a new feature or implement a new feature up here in my toolbar, then I don't want to have to make changes to any of the existing features. And I also don't want to have to test every feature if I add for example, like an image upload feature. So by separating this into logical components and having a strong separation of concern, then I've essentially saved myself time in the future by not having to adjust any of the existing tools or worry about them breaking. If I introduce a new tool and it doesn't touch any of the other tooling, then it's fundamentally not going to break those. It's not going to cause any issues with those tools. Now, this might not seem like a big deal with 3 tools, but that file was already 500 lines of code. Now, if you have 10, 15, 20 tools, or the canvas does start getting bigger, we add things like pan control and things like that, like, then you're talking about enough tools that they are going to start clashing with one another and they're going to start having a larger impact. Now, I'm not going to say that my refactoring of that was perfect. It definitely wasn't, but it's a good step in the right direction, and we make these changes over time as we go. This is an ongoing process. This is an ongoing living thing now. We need to keep it maintainable. The other reason we do this is I'm noticing a trend with what we're seeing in terms of like the job market. Now, I work on Upwork. I work with a couple of companies. I've done this for several years, and I still look at jobs. I still look at tasks because I'm curious, like, I'm just going to drop this down because it's way too bright. But everything I'm seeing is starting to fall into into the same pattern. And that pattern is either people want an MVP built, which is fun. That's exactly what I look for, or they're looking at refactoring their vibe coded app and cleaning up some bugs. Now you can see one right here, looking for someone to clean up a vibe coded prototype into production ready systems. I'm not even going to look at that. Like, that is literally like a thumbs down for me. I don't want to go into something that someone has built with no understanding of software fundamentals. Up that job. That's just not going to end well, both for me and my team. Also for them, like these people aren't going to be happy with the result because it's going to take several months to refactor a lot of these larger projects into something that can be maintained long term. You don't need to do this every day, but if you notice, oh, this is quite a complicated feature and it's starting to get out of hand, I probably need to consider refactoring here. Like, you might actually need to go and learn some fundamentals about some of these software patterns so that you can do the right thing. If you just continue to prompt, you're just not going to go anywhere. You've got to start thinking about context as well. Like the file, for example, like we had our PDF editor. Yeah. So things like here, right? Like this is still a 230 line file. Now, if I had 15 tools in here and I hadn't refactored this, you're potentially passing in a 3, 4, 5,000 line file for every prompt. So not only are you potentially running into more problems, you're also going to be charged more in terms of token usage. Like if you can reduce the amount of tokens needed to get the same result, you're saving money. So not only are you saving time, but you're saving money. And that's a fundamental thing when you're working on these things several times, like multiple times a day even. Like I quite often will implement multiple features in the same sort of components, and that does add up, like if you're doing that. So we're saving money, we're saving time long term, and if you do have prospects of putting on an engineering team, you're also opening up your options for who you can potentially hire in the future. Now, another like I don't want to go into this too much, but if you're trying to get someone to clean up your production ready system, you're not going to get anyone good for $9 to $15 an hour. Like that's just not going to happen. Like I'm charging over almost $100 an hour now, and I'm very easily have a full schedule of work. So at $9 to $15 an hour, you're just going to get someone that has very poor communication or very poor technical skills, or both. And they're probably going to do the same thing as you, where you've just vibe coded an app and you need someone to fix it, and they're like, oh, I can do this and make a little bit of money. No, they're not going to fix anything. They're just going to do the same thing as you with a very poor prompt and no solid refactoring or software fundamentals. I've kind of gone on a rant here. So essentially all we've done is made our project more maintainable long term. So hopefully you guys have found this video useful, and I think in the next one I'm going to go into more back-end patterns and design choices and how they can completely shift the direction of your app and make it far more maintainable. And I think I'm coming up also going to work on like a real simple Claude overview that I use to get me started on some of these repositories and projects. So if you found this video useful, don't forget to subscribe or hit the button, and I'll see you on the next one.